Before I got the DJI Osmo Action 4, I was a bit of a purist. I would argue anywhere and everywhere that there was absolutely no justification for anybody to ever shoot in automatic. I wasn't worth it, don't do it. But all of that changed when I got myself this. And I must say, I now shoot in auto, and I'm going to tell you all about it and why. Now, when I got the Osmo Action 4, one of the first things that I did was quickly remove it from auto, put it in manual mode, make sure it was shooting in 10-bit, in log. I basically, went about YouTube, looked for the best professional settings to use with this camera. And the second thing I did was immediately go out and shoot with it. Now, I've been shooting with this for about 3 weeks, and my use case is mostly news style content. I work as a journalist, not as a videographer or a cinematographer. So my use case is news. And having gone with it in the field, I quickly ran into what I'd call a few challenges. Now, I'm used to using the Canon R6 II or sometimes the Panasonic Lumix S5. And that's a big camera, it's got big dials. So when I'm shooting news or when I'm shooting content for a news blog in a fast moving and fast paced environment, I don't really struggle that much. The exposure can change anytime, much like I'm outside now, but I can always change my ISO quickly, adjust my aperture quickly. There is enough dials for me to do that on the fly without running into problems. With the Osmo Action 4, there's a couple of steps that I always need to take to achieve that. So if the exposure drastically changed from nowhere, I'd have to touch the screen, press the M, then start making those changes. And in that kind of work environment, things can change pretty quickly, so you can lose the shot. In a news environment, it's not always about the quality of the shot, but the story itself. You want to carry meaning. So I found myself in a scenario where my workflow was being affected. And because I needed to get the content done, I didn't want to try and get on a new learning curve and learn how I can quickly shift and adjust those settings. So what did I do? I put it in auto. I wasn't expecting the results that I got. I was pretty surprised with it. First, the white balance on this thing is amazing. You'd actually almost say it's epic. It rarely gets it wrong, and it doesn't drastically change. I never had issues with my exposure, with my color changing while I was shooting. And once I put a limiter on the ISO to stop it from going past 3200, it meant I wasn't getting grain in the shot. It meant I wasn't losing any kind of quality. And I've been surprised. And like I said, I'm a video purist. I'd never advise anybody to shoot manual with any kind of camera. But with the Osmo Action 4, I was pleasantly surprised at how well it shoots in automatic. And since then, I actually haven't removed it in auto. I think the only thing that I've done with it is that hard limit on the ISO, because after 3200, it's really, really, really bad. But besides that, it seems to do everything very well. And obviously another thing is, as a purist, I don't really trust the EV meter. Not on this camera, not on any other camera. I prefer to use false color or to use the histogram. Now, with the Osmo Action 4, the only way to get the histogram is to connect via the app, which meant I was introducing yet another step in my workflow. So I had this conundrum that, how am I going to do this? Now, usually how I solve problems is, if I get any new camera, if I can't get it, I will work with it in manual. I'll stick to it until I gain enough speed in my workflow to be able to get the content I want without having to go into automatic. But with Action 4, I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do that. There's too many steps involved just to do something as simple as changing your shutter speed. You'd have to press the touch, like I said, go into the menu or use the app. There are just so many things. And in the heat of the moment while gathering news content, the shot could go, you could lose it. So to be fair, I now find myself putting this camera in auto more than I imagined I would ever do. And funny enough, something else happened the other day that actually made me feel like, you know what, maybe it's not so bad. I'm still a purist. I still want to shoot manual, I want to shoot raw. But I was having a chat with my wife, and she, again, is more of a journalist than a videographer. She actually said to me, hey, I wonder if I could buy this camera for my mom. And I said, what do you mean? She said, because I'm just wondering, is it a camera that normal people could use? And that phrase, normal people, made me consider that, wait a minute, when we talk about cameras and we say normal people, is there a difference in how we perceive ordinary people who are not trained and people who are trained to use cameras? And I thought, what would a normal person do? Well, they'll go into a shop, they'll buy a camera, they'll switch it on, and when it comes to video, they'll just click record, right? Because when you get this out of the box, it will be an automatic. And that's what normal people would do. So I then challenged myself afterwards to say, look, I'm going to spend another day where I even do everything and anything that normal people would do, right? Shooting cars, trains, me in the park, shooting trees, leaves, flowers, everything in auto, and see if I still get great footage. In the previous workflow, right, when like the first couple of days when I was using it, I was shooting in D-Log and I was having to color grade that footage. I like D-Log because sometimes I've got these artistic looks like I can play around with. But with this footage in auto, I found that I could still make adjustments. Like I've shot with this in auto and I felt that the footage is a little too warm, or a little too cool or too green. And I've added magenta in post. I've even put custom LUTs on the normal footage and it's looked pretty okay. Now granted, of course, it becomes a bit of, I don't know, a rabbit hole or chasing your tail a little bit, because normal people wouldn't color grade, but professionals would color grade, so therefore professionals would need log. But nonetheless, I mean, the footage out of this straight off the back is great. The colors are great and everything is great. And it's definitely changed where I sit in terms of how good cameras are and whether or not people should shoot auto. I, for certain, with this Osmo Action 4 and Osmo Action 5, which I'm shooting on in auto as well, I think I'm going to stick to auto for a while. I think for this camera, unless I'm doing something drastic, auto works just fine, and I'll still be a purist, but maybe I'll be an osmotized purist.
What is it? What is it? They're really like
Oh,
hyper fixated on the ball.
All right.